Welcome, everybody. I'm Marc David, founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. Here we are, back in the Psychology of Eating podcast. I'm with Susan today. Welcome, Susan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Marc.
Well, you know how this works, Susan. If you can wave your magic wand and you could get whatever you want when it comes to food and body, what would that be for you?
I think at this point in my journey, something that's really important for me is to be able to kind of get some sort of a handle on the stress eating or emotional eating, if that's what we would call it. It is better than it has been in previous years. So I'd like to think that I've made some progress, but there are still times when it can be troubling. And so that would be one area I would say that I'd like to get some help in being able to manage.
How often does a stress eating occur for you, would you say?
I maybe on a weekly basis, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, I would say. Mm-hmm. It definitely was more frequently at one point. So I've been able to manage it in most scenarios, but then there are some scenarios where it becomes very intense and it's very difficult to manage. And I feel like that happens maybe 1 to 2 times per week at this point.
Mm-hmm. And when you say difficult to manage, meaning it's difficult to just not do it, it's difficult to not do a certain amount of it, what do you find difficult?
The not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes the amount as well, depending on the situation.
Do you notice any particular times that you might tend to stress eat?
Mm-hmm. Just feelings of just being uncomfortable. It happens most recently. It happens a lot when I'm at work. I feel the pressure coming on after, usually later in the day. I become very anxious, and I just feel the need I run to grab sugar. It's usually sugar, like candy of some sort. And it'll carry through for the rest of the afternoon. And then there are times where if I'm not able to get candy because the store has closed and it's not available, then it'll kind of stick with me for the entire day. Until I leave work. And then, usually by that I feel better. But yeah.
Okay. So let's say you're at work and let's say you're stress eating and you're having some sugar. Does it work for you? Does it feel like it helps?
Maybe momentarily. It takes away the uncomfortable feelings momentarily, but no, because they come right back. Mm-hmm. And that usually will eat, depending on the day, it could lead to continuous candy binge. So it's an immediate maybe hit. And then after that, it's just I'm right back where I was.
Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself ever stress eating on the weekends?
Sometimes Sundays, sometimes on Sundays.
What do you think triggers that for you?
Knowing that the work week is starting.
Got it. So work has you. How long would you say you've been noticing this particular challenge?
I would say it's probably been maybe the last year, 8 months to a year. We were working from home at one point because of COVID, and then that was great. And it was awesome to work from home. And then coming back into the office, I think that's where it became a lot more of a problem for me. Just not feeling comfortable being in the office. And it's not even so much because of COVID, because I feel like myself and my coworkers are safe. It's just, I would rather not be there. I feel as though I would much rather be home. And I've grown very accustomed to being at home and still being able to be productive in my work. And just feeling very uncomfortable in that environment, the environment of the office, as opposed to being at home, and just not having that control of the situation and that freedom that I had when I was at home to take a break when I wanted to, and to, be with my dogs and go out for a walk. I think that has a lot to do with it. So I would definitely say the last 8 months or so to maybe a year since we've been back.
Got it. Isn't that amazing how, you can you can spend a chunk of your life working in an office setting, and then you get a taste of working from home, and that feels really good. And we get accustomed to that. And then going back to the old way doesn't feel so great. I've heard this happening for a number of people, and I can relate. I've been working, quote unquote, from home forever. It feels like, for at least the last 25 years, with occasional consulting jobs where I'll have to go to a location. But I would find it personally hard to have to go into an office 5 or 6 days a week and not be in my own space. And so I can completely understand. Yeah. Does your work offer you any option of, hey, you can work at home, you could work from the office? Have they even discussed that? Has anybody brought that up?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, there is a particular position within the agency where that's available for some people, but it's not a guarantee. I've thought about requesting it, and I still may do that. It would require me to only be in the office 2 days a week. So I'd still be there for 2 days, but I think I can handle that a lot better than what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So that's an idea. It's a possibility. It's definitely not a guarantee. They could deny it, but something I might look into.
Yes. You mentioned when you were talking about stress eating that one of the challenges or one of the things associated with it is that for you, going into the office takes away a bunch of your control. When you're at home, you can control things. You can control when you snack. You can control when you take a walk. You can control when you pet your pet. And you're more in control of your life. And I think one of the hallmarks of a human being is that when we don't feel that we have control, we will become stressed, and then we will look for stress reducers. Mm-hmm. And it's all from a place of not having control. And it's it's about work. It could be about life. It could be about relationship. It could be about, when I get sick, when I get better, how long I live, when I'm going to die. There's a lot of things that are not in our control. And there's a lot of things that do seem to be more in our control. So, right from the beginning of our conversation, I'm not hearing stress eating as your problem. I'm hearing it in a strange way. It's a solution. Mm-hmm. It's a solution to the fact that I'm not feeling good. I'm in a situation that I don't like, and that I don't have a lot of control. It just doesn't feel good to me. And so when I'm not feeling good, I want to feel better. So what do? I reach for something to make me feel better fast.
Yes.
So sweet foods technically make us feel better fast. And it doesn't last so long, which is one of the reasons why it can keep on running itself, because it's an interesting habit. It's literally stress eating, especially when it comes to stress eating sweets or even something salty or crunchy. It takes on a life of its own. So I think that's a part of what you're facing, is that once that habit gains momentum, it's harder to stop.
Yeah.
And for me, as your advocate here right now, I would love to see you look at stress eating as a symptom in your life that's raising its hand. And it's just going, hey, Susan, something's up here. Something's happening. And you've already identified what's happening is that you've tasted some of the good life, and now it's kind of been taken away from you.
Yes.
And I'm all for you having more of the good life. And for you right now, the good life means less of your work happens in the workspace. So I'm going to suggest that anything you can do to be in that conversation and trust it, trust that you'll be in that conversation with your workplace in such a way that it's not going to endanger you. It's not going to make you come across as somebody weird or somebody who's not trying to do your job.
Mm-hmm.
I'd frame it as, hey, here's one of the benefits of COVID time is I realized I can work from home. And quite honestly, I feel like I'm more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have a certain flow. I've talked to other people, they say the same thing.
Right.
How do we do this? How do we make this happen so that you all can have a more productive workforce and I can be working in a way where I'm maximizing my efficiency and my happiness and just being a good employee? That sounds to me like
great.
a win-win conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think putting it that way would definitely make sense to them and they'd be open to considering it.
Otherwise, what's going to happen is, let's say they say no. So if they say no, if I'm in your shoes, I'm coming away with two pieces of information from that. I'm coming away with, if they say no, I'm coming away with, they say no, and I honestly prefer to work from home. If I'm going to continue to work for this company, what am I going to do to make it work for myself? And does it mean I ought not to continue working for this company and look for a position where I'm working from home? And look to create your life as opposed to manage a stress that you might not need to manage.
Mm-hmm.
How does it feel when I say that?
Scary.
Yeah? Tell me
It
what's
makes
scary
total
about
sense. Oh, the idea of, having to look for, if it comes down to it, I guess the realization, or rather, I guess that's a conversation that I need to kind of have with myself. If it does come down to it, where that option is not available to me with this employer, I guess I kind of have to decide how serious is this problem for me? How willing am I to remove myself from a situation that is continuously causing me this stress? Because I feel as though it's not healthy for me to continue to feel that way. It does affect me in all areas of life, not just there. That stress doesn't just go away. So that is something that I have been realizing over the past few months. So that, excuse me, that is, it's a difficult realization, and it's uncomfortable to think of, excuse me, how that might play out. The possibility of not having the security of the position that I'm in now, and there's that uncertainty of what it would look like if I did have to take that step. So it's a little uncomfortable.
Yes, I would feel the same way if I was in your shoes. And I would suggest to do your best to keep framing this as, it's not so much that you have a problem here or that there is a problem. And I get that it shows up as problematic. But the silver lining here is that there's been a discovery. And the discovery is, I'm a happier person working from home. I got a better life or lifestyle when I work from home. That's what it feels like. Because it sounds like prior to COVID, you were going into your office and you didn't have stress eating to this degree. Is that true?
Correct. Definitely not to this degree. Yeah.
Yeah. So you experienced some freedom and it worked and it felt good and you got into a flow, you got into a rhythm, and now you're going back to the old way and you're seeing, that old way doesn't work.
Yes.
So all things being equal, if you knew that your employer would be open to whatever you wanted to do, you would be jumping for joy that, oh, great, I can work from home, because that's going to feel better.
Right.
So all I'm saying is, instead of focusing on, I have a problem. The problem is called stress eating. And I stress eat at work because I'd rather be at home. I would love for you to focus on, I'm a happier person when I work at home. Because when I work at home, here's how I feel. I feel better. I feel happier. I'm more in my flow. I feel more connected. I feel more freedom. I feel more control. So you're focusing on what you want to feel, as opposed to what I don't want to feel.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It is a slightly different approach that changes the internal workings just a little. But it's grasping and embracing the positive in all of this.
Yeah. Definitely. And then it's also, I think for me as well, just coming to the realization that, yes, you have dealt with this for a while. Yes, you have tried to manage it without the stress eating. You know, you've tried to stay positive and just kind of talk myself out of it and say, you know, everybody has a job. You have to go into work. That's just life. Like, this wouldn't even be a thing if I didn't have the opportunity to work from home for a year and a half. This wouldn't have been an issue. But now it is. And so I think I really also need to just come to terms with that and accept that this is what it is. And, you know, like you said, I feel better when I can work from home, and that's important. And how I feel is important. My overall well-being is important, and shouldn't be, dismissed or pushed to the side, so to speak, to conform to the situation being what it is, if it's that uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And I think, I hope, and it seems like this, that we're living in a time more so now where there are more options in terms of work location. So we are clearly moving towards a model where, for a lot of companies, not all, but for a lot of them, we don't have to go to work. We don't have to show up in a workplace. There's all these new platforms that everybody's using so we can all communicate virtually. Or we all get on Zoom. We all have meetings. And there's a benefit to me and you for that. There's a benefit to the company. Benefit to the company is they have a happier workforce. Benefit to the company is you can have more people to choose from in your workforce, because you can choose from anywhere in the country or maybe anywhere in the world. Whereas to come into the workplace, you have to be geographically located. So a lot of businesses are getting on board with, oh, this is a new model. And maybe it's helpful to understand that from the standpoint of who owns the business that you work for, if this isn't the model that they're accustomed to, i.e. a dispersed or a virtual workforce, if they're not accustomed to that, yeah, they're going to be afraid. How do we do this? How do we make sure, people like Susan are productive? How do we keep track of you? How do we make this happen? So it's a transition for them. And once again, I get back to, there's an opportunity here. So I think when you said, hey, maybe I just have to get on board. Everybody has a job. You have to work. You have to make money, and buckle up and go into your workplace and do it. And sometimes that might be what our situation is. And your situation feels far more on the borderline. And it feels to me like there's a little bit of good, juicy, interesting personal growth work you can do here by stepping into being more of a creator in your life. I'm creating my life instead of reacting to it. So reacting to my life would mean, okay, I'm going into work. It's really stressful. I don't like it. And I find myself eating a lot of food. Well, eating a lot of food is my reaction to a stressful work environment. Sometimes a stressful work environment ain't your fault. In a weird way, it's not your problem. You didn't invent that. It is what it is. It might not be comfortable. You might not enjoy working around people. The lighting might not be good. The air circulation might not be good. The heating might not be good. You just might do better with just working on your own with the door closed and not having to be around people. That's okay. That's you. It's kind of like, I don't know, choosing a partner or choosing a husband or a wife or a friend. We're pretty particular about who we choose. Here's what's going to work for me. If I'm going to live with somebody, or if I'm going to be best friends with somebody, here's what's got to look like. Wouldn't it be interesting if we could apply a little bit of that thinking to the workplace?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's about you, empowering you to be in conversations that are not, you're not giving anybody ultimatums. You're just saying, hey, good news here. COVID has really helped us see that we can work virtually. Here's what I've discovered about me working virtually. I would love to continue the love and keep on being even a happier person working in this company. How do we do that?
Yeah.
That gives you more control in a strange way, which is the very thing you feel you lack right now. Well, I don't have control over my workplace, and therefore, I'm reaching for food. This is one way of just inviting more control into your life. I can say something. I can be in conversations. I know who to go to at my workplace or the peoples to go to start this conversation. And see if you can empower yourself in the conversation as opposed to, oh my God, what if they say no? Oh my God, what if they're mad at me?
Right.
If somebody who worked for my company had a great idea that benefited the company and benefited them, I think great.
Yes. Definitely a conversation that needs to be had.
Mm-hmm. So I would suggest from a very practical standpoint that moving forward, while you're still working in the office space, instead of focusing on how do I not stress eat, consider focusing on how do I have a little bit more control over my workplace experience.
Okay.
What are the little things you can do at work to give yourself a better experience? You're not going to be able to reproduce your experience of work at home or what you have at home at the workplace, so you're not going to be able to exactly reproduce that. But are there little things that you're not thinking of necessarily right now that you can do to make your in the workplace experience a little better, a little bit more control? Does anything come up for you when I say that?
Maybe taking more walks, getting away from the computer and out of the cubicle and getting some fresh air more frequently throughout the day. I definitely have to give that some thought. That's a great idea.
I love that for you. Honestly, sometimes it's the little things during our workday that add up and make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy to get caught up in, I'm sitting and I'm working and I'm in front of the box, i.e. the computer, and we can get sucked in. And I notice for me, if I'm taking breaks every 45 minutes, even if it's a 2-minute break, a 3-minute break, step outside, breathe some air.
Mm-hmm.
I have a big yoga mat in the living room. I'll just take after 45 minutes, I'll just lay on the yoga mat for a minute or two, do a couple of stretches, it's enough to get me in my body, create a little bit of separation from my desk, and I feel better.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a few minutes.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
So it's not fighting the eating. It's seeing what else will nourish me in this experience. What else gives me more control? What else gives me more happiness? What else gives me more pleasure? What else gives me more relaxation?
Yeah.
It might mean if you like music and put on the headphones, play a favorite song every 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That just changes your energy. Something upbeat, something good, something that works for you.
Yeah. That I could do.
But I think, Susan, you're seeing my general approach here, which is to not look at your stress eating as the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And not looking at it as you're not a failure. You're not a willpower weakling. You're not doing anything wrong. You're actually you're doing something right. The right thing you're doing is you're noticing that I have a better experience working at home than I do working at work. Stress eating at work means I'm stressed at work. I'm not stress eating in the house. So that's information about your life.
Definitely.
It's just sort of body wisdom talking and saying, hey, y'all, let's have a better experience here. And here's what happens when we don't have a good experience. We like to turn to food when things get too stressful. Makes perfect sense that you would turn to food. It's easy, it's available, it's quick. And unfortunately, it doesn't really do the trick. It doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Because our life is more substantial than to eat sugar or not eat sugar. Because the sugar is just pointing in the direction called, hey, Susan, look where you might be happier. How do we do this? How do we make this happen? How do we be in this conversation? How do we advocate for you instead of thinking that you're stuck and you have no choice and you have no control and you have no say and you have no voice? Important to have a voice here.
Yeah. I see where that will create the sense of control that I seem to be missing. Just acknowledging what's going on and speaking up about it, regardless of how it plays out or how it's received on the other end. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How you feeling about this conversation so far?
Very good. Very good. Enlightened. And I feel positive, going back into work. I feel like I've been heard. I've spoken this out loud to another human being who understands, and I've gotten some direction on what I can do to make the situation better for myself. So feeling good.
Great, Susan. I think you got a good action plan here. And I think you got a good new framing of what you're experiencing. And I want to keep reminding you to remind yourself that even if you do end up stress eating, it's not your fault. It's not the problem. It doesn't say anything about you or your character. What it simply says to me is that you're a human being who is sensitive and you are learning about what works for you and what doesn't. And when something's not working for you, something, little unwanted symptoms might show up, like stress eating. And that symptom points to something else. That symptom points, oh, wow, why am I stress eating? Oh, because I'm in a situation that doesn't quite work for me. What could I do about that?
Yeah.
That's the dialogue I would love to see you be in. And again, in the meantime, while you're going into work, instead of fighting stress eating, find out and experiment with what gives me more pleasure, nourishment, goodness, and control in my work environment. And you already mentioned a few things. And that to me is going to help the stress eating, not fighting the stress eating, because you haven't been able to do that anyway.
Right.
So fighting it doesn't work. Listening to it works. Noticing where it is pointing to works. And then noticing what else can be a substitute for eating that actually gets you closer to what you want in the workplace, which is just more of a sense of satisfaction and happiness that you're being a human being that enjoys being here.
Yes. 100%.
I wish you lots of luck, Susan. I'm interested to hear how it's going to work out for you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. This was extremely helpful. I will keep you posted.
Great. I'm glad you jumped in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
And thanks everybody for tuning in. Take care.
Hey friends, we're so happy that you've joined us for another episode of The Psychology of Eating with Marc David. Are you loving these episodes? Then simply subscribe and you'll never miss an episode again. We'd also love it if you'd leave us a comment below so we can hear more about your own journey with food and body. And if you're curious about what we offer at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, including our internationally acclaimed coach certification training that's rooted in dynamic eating psychology and mind-body nutrition, please head on over to our website, psychologyofeating.com. Until next time, take care. And remember, having the body you want starts with loving the body you have.